I'm glad that you mentioned the Shah. So yesterday, I'm watching Fox News, and I watch it so others don't have to. And Lindsey Graham's on there, your reliable neoconservative shitheel, and he said, we want Iran to be free the way they were before 1979, restore their freedom. I'm like, under the Shah? Under the Shah? I mean, under Savak and the torture prisons in Tehran and brutal regime, like that we installed after.
That's right.
In 1953, after we overthrew the democratically elected President Mossadegh. Wow. I mean, but they're so ahistorical. I've got to think Lindsey Graham knows about that. John, Ted Cruz has a reputation of being one of the more erudite members of the United States Senate. Or
went to Harvard.
He used to have that reputation. He was a great, I love to say this, he was a master debater. But on Tucker yesterday, he sounded more just like a masturbator. He didn't sound good, did he?
No. He sounded like a petulant child. And Tucker ran intellectual rings around him. I was very, very interested. It was so much fun to watch. They started off, it's funny because it was as though Cruz kind of knew it was coming, but still wasn't prepared to deal with it. And he started off by saying, Tucker, you and I probably agree on 80% of the issues. And Tucker said, absolutely true. We probably do agree on 80% of the issues. And Tucker says, in fact, I supported your reelection last time. And he said, yes, you did. And I appreciate that. And then they went to war, just like that.
Oh, man.
Just like that. Tucker said, you have been saying on television and on the floor of the Senate that we need to overthrow the Iranian government. I mean, do you know anything about Iran? For example, do you know the population of Iran? And he didn't have any idea what the population of Iran was. He immediately became defensive, and Tucker went in for the kill. It was dramatic.
It's not. First of all, never. I would love to be interviewed by Tucker, and I would never show up unprepared. But I've got to say, that sounds like it might be a gotcha question, right? To Americans, sure. Americans are a little bit, geography impaired. We don't get and all that. But that said, okay, first of all, you're a United States Senator. You should know these things. And then also, I wrote in on a lorry, fifth reference to Afghanistan. Man, I'm such a liar today. With a guy from the UK Independent, and we were like bouncing along and watching the refugees walk by, and he said, you Americans, you should have a rule about your wars. And I said, what rule is that? He said, if the average American can't name 3 cities in a country, you're not allowed to invade. And I said, dude, we couldn't invade Canada if we had a rule like that.
It's true. It's true. I don't know about you, but on TikTok, as I'm laying in bed at night, I'm flipping through videos, and there's always this kid standing in Times Square or on Hollywood Boulevard asking random people walking by, what state is directly south of North Dakota? And they're like, the Great Wall of China.
Oh, my God.
Or Panama Canal. It's embarrassing, and it's just video after video after video.
Yesterday I saw something like that where a guy was like, he didn't look like he'd been swallowing his own tongue or anything, and he said the 20th century. I don't know when that was.
Exactly.
I know that, Bolt. I know that these kind of questions were used to keep Black people from voting, but I mean, I'm kind of in favor of some of those questions. I kind of think if you don't know when the 20th century was, I'm not sure I want you to be able to vote.
If you don't know how many states there are, I'm shocked at the number of people that say 52. I'm shocked by it. Or when was the American Revolution? I watched this one today. When was the American Revolution? And the first response was, I knew you was going to ask me some of that history shit. And then she said, 1965.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
And,
But Ted Cruz, to get
a really easy question right now, because we're about to enter the 250th anniversary.
That's right. Exactly.
Well, technically, this is the 200th anniversary now, right? So,
right. But to get back to your initial Ted Cruz point, this is a guy that went to Harvard and Harvard Law School. This is a guy who would be leading the efforts on Capitol Hill to push for, to approve, authorize, and appropriate funds for a war with Iran. And he doesn't have the foggiest idea how many people are there. Like if you're a senior member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Secretary of Defense are going to come to you in your official position to say that they need X number of troops, X number of planes, X number of ships, and you have zero reference because you don't have any idea how many people live in Iran, then you have no business in that position.
And has he ever been to Iran? Almost certainly not, right?
Never.
I mean, and here's the other thing, John, right? Like, millions and millions of Americans have been to Iran. Mm-hmm. I'm one of them. There's Iranians who spent decades of their life who are now Americans. You could talk to them. You could say, "Hey, what do you think? What do you think people will say?" There are millions of Americans who have family in Iran who they talk to every single day. Right now, they're on WhatsApp if WhatsApp is still on. And they can talk to them. I mean, it is kind of amazing that there's this lack of information. I remember I was on with Bill O'Reilly back in the day, and he was going on and on and on about the Afghan people. They really want this, they want that, they want democracy, they want a free press. And I was like, he wouldn't stop. And I was like, I just gotten back a couple days earlier, and I'm like, have you been, Bill, to Afghanistan? Well, no. And I was like, so how do you know what the people of Afghanistan want? I mean, there were 28 million of them at the time. I knew that population. And I was like, I don't purport to know what all the people of Afghanistan want. It's a big, diverse country. How do you know? Well, that's what everyone wants. I was like, I don't actually think that's true. I was like, at the time, I think Afghans want law and order, and they want roads, and they want to be able to pay, feed themselves. That's probably comes first before they care about the newspaper. I'm just guessing. But it's really crazy. I gotta say, the thing about our colonialism and our imperialism is directly derived from the Brits, but we didn't learn from the Brits. I mean, the Brits used to go and live there. They brought their families with them. They stayed there. It still didn't work because they still didn't connect with the locals, and they were still there to oppress them and rape their land. But at least they felt like with the Brits, it was like they wrote and read books about every detail of the countries that they were occupying. They knew their economies, they knew their histories, they knew their culture. They worked hard to figure it out as much as they could. We have no such compulsion, right? We just we'll throw some bombs at them and hope for the best.
Yeah, and then you find some occupation governor to go over there and serve a 9-month tour, and then you cycle out military and CIA people 6 months at a time. Nobody takes it seriously.
Parachute them in, and the media doesn't know shit either.
No.
This seventh reference to Afghanistan. I remember sitting with the same reporter I talked about earlier, and there was an Asian-looking guy walking in the street, and she goes, and this was a woman from the Washington Post, so, not a slouch. And she goes, well, why on earth is there, a Chinese guy here? I go, he's not Chinese, he's Uyghur. And she goes, how do you, what's that? And I was like, why would they be here? I'm like, oh, well, some of them came here to train with the Taliban to fight the Chinese in Western China. And she's like, how did he get here? I'm like, Afghanistan borders China.
Oh my God.
And she's like, yeah. I'm like, you didn't look at a map before you flew over here?
Oh my God.
And they just get parachuted in. I mean, it's really depressing. I mean, really, truly. We're not getting good information at all.
No. Listen, just as an aside, I met a Fox News reporter a young, very good-looking blonde last week that didn't know Luxembourg was a country. She asked me, Luxembourg, like Luxemburger, is that some kind of sandwich or something? Or did you make that up?
Oh.
And I looked at her like, what? I said, no, it's a country, an actual country.
Yeah, it's a real country. Not a big country, but a country.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's amazing. Okay, well, so our next show is scheduled for Saturday. We may do an earlier one if something comes up.
Yeah.
We're kind of working on something that you and I both know about, and I'm very excited about, and I hope it'll turn up. It'll happen soon.
Yeah.
Before we leave this and move on to the situation with the Big Beautiful Bill Act, it just rolls off the tongue.
It's I'm embarrassed to even say it.
Absurd. What do you? So where are we going to be here? I mean, so basically, this is a game of chicken, right? Whoever keeps their ICBMs the longest wins. Is that basically it? And then I guess the question is, where does Trump come down? The Wall Street Journal, which has consistently had strong reporting on this, is saying that Trump has already okayed. Basically, he's given the okay to prepare an attack against Iran, but he hasn't given. Basically, it's like, get ready. And when I give the heads up, you can go. That's not a go. That's not a.
That's not a go. That's not a go.
That happens all the time, and often nothing happens, right? That could just be more posturing for the benefit of the Iranians. I don't think the Iranians are coming back to the negotiating table anytime soon, though, right? I mean, why would they?
Totally agree. Totally. Ayatollah Khomeini ruled that out yesterday, just hands down. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. I want to add something. I know we're going to switch to the Big Beautiful Bill in a minute, but I happen to be in Iceland. I don't know if you can. You can't really see out my window. I'm right at the port. But anyway, I'm in Iceland, and so I'm flipping through the channels today, and on all of the Icelandic channels, there are fundraising advertisements for emergency food shipments to Yemen. Not just on one channel and not just one advertisement. There are multiple advertisements and they're on every single channel. And I was thinking, wow, what a great idea this is. And they're showing, starving children and malnourishment, and there's no clean water, and it's been 40 years of fighting. And then I thought, why don't we have these commercials in the United States? Because the United States doesn't give a shit about starving children, whether they happen to be in Yemen or Iraq or Afghanistan or anywhere else.
Or in the United States.
Or even in the United States. You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
Don't give a shit.
We've got a $1 trillion defense budget. Defense. We should have never changed the name from the War Department to the Defense Department. But
we ought not to.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. And it's part of the reason I like travel, is you get that perspective. You see how other people do things.
Yeah.
Why don't we do that? Let's move over to the Big Beautiful Bill. Looks like it's in trouble in the Senate. It's not exactly shocking. There was a lot to not recommend it. And mainly it's a combination of deficit hawks and too many cooks in the same kitchen.
That's it.
And I think so. I don't think this thing is going to pass.
I don't think so either. I think that Donald Trump yet again underestimated the independence of individual senators. They like to think that they should all be president. They like to think that they know better than everybody else. And in this case, I think a lot of them do know better. And I think that Donald Trump thinks that, like, in the House, you can just threaten and cajole and bully and people will fall into place. Remember, the Big Beautiful Bill Act passed the House by one single vote.
Right.
it's going to be a lot tougher in the Senate.
Some of those votes who voted to pass it would not vote for it now.
That's right.
Taylor Greene had major regrets. By the way, this is the world we're in. I pointed it out before. I'll point it out again. Marjorie Taylor Greene is literally messaging like one of the most sane, rational members of the United States Congress.
Dude, I'm ashamed that I'm like, yeah, go Marjorie.
Yeah.
I can't believe she's right on this issue. She's just right.
She's just saying that, like, particularly, that while we're ignoring that Trump was not elected to deal with the Iranians, he was elected to deal with the border and inflation. And that's true. And,
yes.
And I think at the same time, there's just no appetite for this certainly among Democrats.
That's
but,
right.
Ironically, I think there might be more appetite for the warmongering among Democrats.
The Adam Schiffs of the world, they love this stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And they really buy this whole idea of, Iran as an existential threat to Israel. It's like,
that sounds like an Israel problem to me, not an America problem.
That's how I
just don't get it.
Yeah, and I don't even really truly believe it's an Israel problem. I don't think there's any problem at all. I think they're just making it up. I think Iran has no interest whatsoever they're into resisting Israel and through their proxies and everything, but they don't want to destroy Israel. They don't want to nuke Israel. They don't want to kill all the people who live there. They just don't want to. It's not, they have a lot of reasons not to, and they don't want to. It's just, there's no reason, there's no evidence at all that that's what they're on about.
Yeah, that's right. Well, this big, beautiful bill in the Senate is running into non-foreign policy problems too. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of differing opinions on taxation, for example. There are a lot of differing opinions on tax credits for clean energy. Like, why would you be opposed to clean? I don't get it.
I don't get it. There's money to be made. People always, when you have a disruptive technology, right? Like clean energy is not like no energy. It's a replacement of, the biggest investors in clean energy are companies like ExxonMobil and BP. They're into it, right? These are energy companies. Whatever the energy is, whether it comes out of the ground or if it comes from the sun or from the ocean, they don't care. They're on it. They're going to be part of it. And there's a lot more money in building and creating entirely new infrastructure of charging stations and so on than there is in just keeping the old one going and just, maintaining the gas stations.
That's right. That's right. This just makes no sense to me. But my point is, if you take these individual news interviews with individual senators from over the past week, every one of the Republicans who says that they are at present a no vote on the big, beautiful bill is a no vote for a completely different reason. And to me, that just dooms the whole thing. Remember, the system that we have is the House passes a version, the Senate passes a version. Almost never are the two versions the same. Mm-hmm. And so
they go to reconciliation.
They go to reconciliation in something called conference committee, where you've got 10 senators and 10 House members, X number of Republicans and X number of Democrats in each thing. They hash it out. It goes back to both houses, and they have to vote on the whole thing all over again before it then goes to the president for his signature. So this is by no means a done deal. Not yet, anyway.
This would have been probably the only major legislative achievement of this presidency.
Yeah, right.
Basically the equivalent of the Build Back Better bill under Biden. That's pretty much the only thing Biden got done. And so Trump is in danger. Sorry, Mr. President, and we know you watch the show, of maybe not achieving as much as Joe Biden.
Ouch. Oh my God. Hey, I want to ask you, I know we're running out of time, I wanted to ask your opinion on something.
Mm.
So I recently was speaking with a friend of mine who happens to be at the White House, in a relatively senior position. It's a deputy position. And he said that the scuttlebutt is that Pete Hegseth is just not the guy for DOD, and that he'll likely resign at about the 1 year.
That wasn't classified information, John.
Right. So he'll likely resign around the 1 year mark. This is what they're anticipating.
Mm.
Well, this was a week ago. So this was just days before the Iran thing started. That the conventional wisdom inside the White House was that Tulsi Gabbard would then become the Secretary of Defense.
Mm.
Well, now you've got the president like openly and in a hostile form criticizing the work that Tulsi Gabbard is doing as the head of all of America's intelligence services. How do you see this going?
I think Tulsi's in deep trouble. I mean, I think she has a target on her back. Look, it was always kind of a like surprisingly great fit. I mean, I was so happy when she was chosen. I just thought like that gave me some hope. Her and RFK Jr. were my favorite picks for the administration. And so, but I always thought she was going to have a hard road to climb. The other day, there was a big meeting about what to do about Iran at the White House with some principals. She was frozen out. She was iced out, not invited. Anyone who's ever held a job where there's a meeting that you're supposed to be invited to and you're not there, that's not good. Now, technically, she was on National Guard duty, right? I hope she wasn't like beating up pro-migrant protesters in LA or anything like that. I'm assuming she doesn't do that. But still, she was supposed to be invited to this meeting, and she wasn't. So I think Tulsi would have been a fantastic pick for DOD to replace Pete Hegseth. And, people in Trump world, it's not like always like a perfect trajectory where they rise and they fall and then they're gone. People, like Hegseth had, he was considered doomed. Then he was considered to have survived. Now he's in trouble again. It's like Trump world is dangerous. You don't have to do a lot to end up becoming a target.
That's right. It'll just spit you right out.
I suspect, though, we're going to end up with some grade A neocon asshole to replace him, and we're going to miss Pete Hegseth. And what a incredibly competent, intelligent, experienced man he was. I think this is only going to be downhill.
I hate to say, I think so too. Real quickly, we have a couple of questions and comments. Do I think the reports of the Iranians planning to assassinate Trump are true? No, I don't think they're true. I think that it could have been, 6 guys sitting around a conference room table in Tehran saying, man, we should assassinate Trump. And somebody then said, yeah, he killed General Soleimani. We should kill Trump. And then nothing came of it. So no, I don't think there was any active, plan, program to go out there and assassinate Donald Trump.
Let's flip this around, John. What about the reports that the U.S., that Trump was saying, we we can assassinate the Ayatollah Khomeini?
Yeah, I interviewed Mohammed Marandi yesterday for my other podcast, Deep Focus, and we talked about this after the filming was done, and Mohammed made a good point. Ayatollah Khomeini has never owned a cell phone, never. He doesn't use
hopefully
email.
Not a pager either.
Oh yeah, not a pager. He's a very old man. He's not a tech guy, and he's got a staff that does that for him. He's got a Twitter page or an X page, but that's not really him. It's people writing for him. He approves the tweet, and then it goes out. So it's not like we're tracking his cell phone or tracking his email usage and geolocating him. So no, I think he's more easily comparable to Saddam Hussein, who also didn't use an email or a cell phone or any electronics and was very hard to find. I don't think Trump has a beat on him. No.
And Bin Laden too, right?
Same with Bin Laden.
Bin Laden used runners, right?
That's right. Which we tried hard to track down and never could. Never could.
So smart, though.
Yeah.
Keep it simple.
And what are the extent of Tulsi's power? That's a really good question and an important one. Tulsi actually is far, far weaker than the CIA director, John Ratcliffe. Tulsi's real authority.
She's not his boss.
She's not his boss. It's a dotted line between each other. Her real authority is the budget. It's the budget for the entire intelligence community. Now, in order to make ODNI more powerful, during the Biden administration, they transferred the president's daily brief staff, the PDB staff, to the DNI. So it no longer sits at CIA, it sits at DNI, which I think was a mistake, but that's just me. And they also moved organizations like, they call it Russia House, Iran House, or Persia House is what they call it. So there's supposed to be these fusion centers where people from all the different intelligence agencies come together and try to come up with some kind of intelligence program against our enemies. But she doesn't like run the day-to-day operations of those organizations. It's really all about the budget. That's what it comes down to.
Which is, in bureaucracy, is powerful.
It's important.
But like this doesn't really matter that much when it's about who's most powerful at the table. Donald Trump, speculation, but Donald Trump was burned by the neocons in his first term. He didn't trust them before he came in his first term, yet he hired them, and he hired them, and then
still humors them, which I just simply don't understand.
That's my question.
I whack them.
President Paul doesn't appoint any neocons.
Right. There's this
doesn't do with that either. Like,
there's a debate right now within the Republican Party that, is Donald Trump dividing MAGA, number one, or is MAGA whatever Trump tells us it is? That's the real argument. And I can't believe the words are going to come out of my mouth again. I think that Marjorie Taylor Greene is right, that MAGA is its own standalone ideology. It's nationalist, it's anti-interventionist, and you can't just change your mind day to day over what its ideology is going to be. You just can't.
Right, and I think that in something that I don't have usually, but sympathy for Donald Trump. He's the head of a neatly divided, nearly 50-50 party coalition between that nationalist Pat Buchanan, America First strain that goes back, really at least 100 years in American history.
Yes.
The other day I saw a quote from Trump where he said, I invented America First, and I tweeted out a picture of my political button from Woodrow Wilson that says Woodrow Wilson, America First. I have the receipts. I know that's just not true, but he was. But he has that coalition. He has to deal with those people. But he also has the OG Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, neocon infested Republican Party that itself used to be a coalition between corporatists and country club Republicans, and there used to be liberal Republicans, but they are no more. The Rockefeller Republicans, bye-bye. But the point is, he's got a restive coalition. I mean, he is between a rock and a hard place, but a crisis like this does force him to choose.
Yes, it does, very much so. And that's why I think he's trying to avoid this fight. I think he wants Republicans to just do what he tells them to do, trust in his leadership, and step aside. And they're not willing to do that.
No. Ultimately, if I were Donald Trump, but see, Donald Trump doesn't know history. If I were Donald Trump, I'd launch a Night of the Long Knives and get rid of all the neocon assholes who are my problem. Don't kill them. Don't drag them out of their beds where they're sleeping with young boys and shoot them in the middle of the night, like happened in 1934.
Yes, and many of them were in bed with young boys when the knives came out.
Not making that up. Looking at you, Ernst Röhm.
Ernst Röhm. Exactly.
but like the thing is, I mean, yeah, ultimately you have to have a purge, right? I mean, you know, if you have a restive coalition and you want to lead, you can't let them wag you. You've got to choose one side and whack the other side. There's no other way to rule.
That's it. That's it. And that's why the sociopaths are the ones who make it to the top, because they make it to the top on the backs of the people around them.
Yeah, they sure do. All right. I think I consider myself to have been sufficiently deprogrammed.
Yeah, me too.
All right. So we're going to be back here on Saturday, 12 noon Eastern time. Tomorrow's a national holiday, so happy Juneteenth to everybody. And please like, follow, subscribe. It makes all the difference for our show and for every other show here that you like on YouTube and Rumble. And also hi to people who are not watching but are just listening to the audio feed. We love you too. And thank you so much. We have one question here. I'll let John answer that before we go out about your book.
Thank you, Hans. You know what? It was supposed to come out again. It was supposed to come out next week. And I don't know what the delay is, but thanks for asking. I'm going to ask.
In the meantime, so you can always, can you pre-order the Graveyards book?
I went on yesterday on Amazon to see if it was open for pre-order yet, and it's not. And there's no explanation as to why. I don't know what's taking them so long.
Who knows? I blame Iran.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, thanks everyone for listening and watching, and we will see you soon. Thank you and take care.
Bye-bye.